Hello, this is Jed Brewer with Study Groups in the Below the Line Club. Really nice to have you with us today as we talk about diesel markets and some trends that are taking place within them, as well as fleets, which are attached to diesel markets as well, and how do we best manage our fleets overall. So really pleased that we've got some industry experts here. Two people will be joining us to begin with, which is going to be Eric Jacobson, who is the CRO at Tivitri, and then John Kirby, who's a partner account manager at Samsara. Samsara produces a lot of truck cameras, artificial intelligence, and data to help people manage their fleets and become safer organizations and operate more efficiently. And Tivitri fits in there as well by helping market some of Samsara's products, as well as many other data products out there that are leaders in the industry. And both Eric and John will be talking about how does managing all your technology feel like herding cats sometimes. There's a lot of players and pieces, and how do they all fit together so it can feel that way, and what can you do to ultimately lower your fuel costs, boost your efficiency, and track your equipment better, and then learn about the AI features that Tivitri and Samsara are using to help make companies safer. After that, we are going to flip over to Johnny Howard, who's the account executive at Direct Fuel Sales. And Johnny will be talking about how to compete in the diesel industry both today and tomorrow. So he'll be giving an overview of state of fuel payments, like how did we get to where we are today, and then the advantage of increasing growth using digital payments and how to stay up to date and move forward as with a company that you can trust in this changing market that's out there. So it should be a real good educational webinar. We want this to be educational. So if you have questions, please ask them in the go to webinar dialog box. I have you muted just to keep background noise from happening. But if you type in a question, I'll be able to read it and I can pass it on to our presenters so they can talk about it. So we'll be in and out in an hour. We're going to record this. That way you can view it later as well as have access to the slide decks too. So with that introduction, let's get right into it. So I'm going to turn the floor over to John Kirby at Samsara and Eric Jacobson at Tivitri. Guys, talk with us a little bit more about how we can connect our operations with some of this technology that you guys are working with.
Sure, I'll kick things off. Thanks, Jed, for the introduction, and thanks everybody online for joining and hearing what we have to say today. We're a technology solution provider for companies that have fleets of vehicles, and so we're partnered with many different solutions, many legacy and modern solutions that you could think of across the industry. And what we would see is, by going to all these trade shows, is that there's a solution for dash cameras, and there's a solution for ELD and telematics, and there's a solution for asset tracking, and there's someone else doing document management, and someone else doing a workflow application for your drivers, and someone else working on fuel management. And you've got all these different vendors that you've got to manage, and then customer support became, a nightmare to handle all the different companies that you're working with. And so what we saw in the industry is that a lot of fleets really wanted, the golden goose, so to speak, was how can we consolidate all these solutions into a single pane of glass? How do we have a platform that can do all this, that actually works well together? And so what we're doing today is really focusing on one example, Samsara, that has been able to do just that very well. And so that's what we're seeing in the industry, and we're gonna see some examples of that today and talk about it a little bit. And then at the end of this, we'll give you some examples of some of the other solutions that we can tie in with Samsara to even consolidate more. So with that, I'll pass it over to John to kind of go through some of his slides.
Yeah, Eric, thanks so much. Hey everyone, my name is John Kirby. I am a partner account manager that works at Samsara. So I support our resale partners here in the US, and excited to talk through some of the different pieces that we're bringing to market and how we're helping overcome some of the operational challenges that we're seeing for our customers. And, I think the diagram on the right here does a good job of kind of showing what people, fleet managers specifically, are experiencing, especially as we have a huge influx of data, whether it be from the OEMs that are creating, the Fords, the John Deeres, Volvos, that are connecting their devices to the cloud, or to individual, maybe paper and pen to confirm delivery or take orders, and even dispatch and routing for their different users. So what we're trying to do is break down some of the data silos across some of these physical operations, and provide an easy way to kind of aggregate all of those different pieces of your business, and help you cut through the noise with artificial intelligence and kind of specific items that will require your attention. So some of the operational challenges that we're running into are people working to stay ahead of safety risks, whether that's driving driver safety through coaching behaviors, or if that's how you're receiving shipments at a receiving bay or warehousing. Meeting customer expectations, especially as everything has been sort of Amazon led. People are looking for additional information around when things will arrive, how quickly can we get something to them after the order is placed, and then working to manage multiple systems and making that data actionable. So again, as the amount of data that is becoming available to people, it almost gets lost in how much information is available, right? So we want to be able to make that actionable by really identifying concise issues that people can take action on.
That makes a lot of sense, John. It feels like just what you said, there's no shortage of data out there, but how do we make inference? How do we use the data? How do we get the right information that's going to help us change our company?
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm showing you guys here is how Samsara plugs into those different parts of the business. So our core business started with vehicle gateways and AI dash cameras, which have really worked to provide insight into GPS information, how your drivers are interacting with loads, deliveries, and providing some insight into how safely they're driving, right? One of the number one costs for different fleets is accident resolution, insurances, and things along those lines. So we want to make sure that people are driving safely. There's also a huge push around compliance to make sure that we're meeting federally mandated hours of service and different logging protocols to make sure that we're keeping the roads as safe as possible. That is now expanded out to tie into asset tracking as well. So if you consider like trailers, reefers, so if you're working to maintain a specific temperature, we can provide like cold chain of custody for groceries, make sure that everything is arriving safely and hasn't been spoiled at any point. We can also tie in with those asset gateways into vehicles, and anything down to something as dumb as anything like as simple as a porta potty, right? So making sure that we're providing some GPS information that helps people maintain and track those assets. And the final piece is our site cameras and site gateway. We won't touch on these that much today, but we basically take some of the AI that we've provided into our cloud for vehicle tracking and dash cameras, and provided that to physical locations like warehouses and receiving bays. And ultimately, all of that has been tied into a single pane of glass, as Eric mentioned earlier, that makes it very easy to understand the full, the way that your fleet is distributed and how people are working through different orders. And so without getting too into the weeds here, what we wanted to do was just show you some immediate impact that customers have had by adopting our solution. So the first is Dorn Transfer Company, who is using both our telematics and camera solution. And as mentioned earlier, one of the big focuses that we have is helping people make the roads safe, protect their drivers, and make sure that everything is moving smoothly, right? So what we've seen is that across the 545 vehicles that Dorn has across 14 states, they have introduced some gamification of driver safety. And I'll show you shortly through a dashboard demo how we go through and we'll calculate different safety scores. But essentially by gamifying this for their drivers, they saw an 88% reduction in harsh events. Those harsh events are anything from like speeding, following too closely, harsh brake environments. And because of that reduction in harsh events, they were able to see a 10% decrease in driver turnover. The feedback that we got from this customer was that people want to work for safe companies, and Samsara shows our employees that Dorn values investing in safety and our people, and as a result, we're able to hire and retain quality members of our team. It is really interesting to me. I was recently at a insurance captive conference, and the safety piece is so top of mind for so many employees and fleet managers. I literally had people coming up to me, pulling their phones out and saying, look at this accident that you guys were able to absolve us from, or look how closely this person almost hit my car. It was very funny how some of this data is used, or just how excited people were getting about being able to point out specific examples. Another
thought it was interesting. I was at a study group meeting just yesterday, and one of the members was talking about putting cameras into his fleet, and he said in our insurance captive, we would have gone 10 years ago and said, who's using cameras in our fleet? 10% of the audience raised their hand, and now today it's about 90% that are in the captive. So to your point about adoption and the benefits that are there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of insurance programs that surround Samsara that can help drive benefits and savings. So if you guys are part of a captive or leveraging a provider like that, Eric can definitely help you guys understand what programs are available to you. Another example is UFP Industries. So they use Samsara to ensure proof of delivery, increase safety, and streamline operations. And this is just another example of how one of the feature sets within our product can help save time and money for our customers. So they have 350 vehicles completing over 200,000 deliveries. They'll use Samsara to prove proof of delivery and speed to invoicing their customers. And because of that, they've been able to save 600,000 annually in administrative workload. And this is the feedback we got from them. The big win here is the document upload. So being able to go through and basically say, yes, this is on site, snap a photo, upload it to Samsara's cloud, and say, hey, we've kind of done our we've done our part of the bargain. Now we're ready for the next thing. Has really helped them move things forward. So I will show you how those workloads can be set up and can help streamline just the overall driver experience. And this is a sort of high-level overview of what we're working with, right? So basically, we have the Samsara devices that will go through and answer specific use cases, right? So dash cams is for driver safety, vehicle telematics ties in with some of our compliance around ELD or hours of service, as well as providing GPS information. We have apps and driver workflow and equipment monitoring. And then this all rides on top of our software platform that includes AI and machine learning, the workflow and analytics, alerts, and developer and API alongside privacy and security. I think one of the big things that I'd like to call out is that because we are a fully open ecosystem, we leverage partners like Tivitri to come through and provide sort of an end-to-end solution for our customers. So if you guys are currently using some type of like TMS software that you're really enjoying, we likely have an integration with that software provider and can make sure that we're kind of marrying the two databases together to provide a really great experience for you. And as mentioned, this sort of like hectic part of this is the IoT data, right? So showing how loud some of that can get. And I will show you shortly how we cut through the noise. And finally, this is a very busy slide, so I am not going to work through this very much, but I just wanted to show, from a consolidation perspective, we can go through and tie into all of these different parts of a business. I'll make sure that these slides are available in case you want to do a little bit of a deep dive in here, but all of these things are native to the Samsara dashboard. They can certainly be sort of augmented by other providers, but we are able to provide insight into everything from safety to compliance down to workflows and reporting. And we can do that pretty well. So I think certainly it's a robust platform, and we have a lot of resources that can help you guys get comfortable and leverage it effectively. With that, I'm going to jump into a quick dashboard demo. Just to show you guys what this looks like, right? So obviously, slides are great, but actually experiencing what sort of a day-to-day of a Samsara fleet manager could look like. You would log in, and we're actually looking at Dorn Transfer Company, one of the customers that I shared earlier. We're looking at their dashboard. And what you'll see is all of their different vehicles and how they're sort of aggregated across the country. So definitely a Midwest company. We can kind of click in here to Kansas City. And this is going to show us all of the local vehicles. And if we click on Map Legend, you can see the ones, moving vehicles are dictated by a triangle, online vehicles are circle, online assets, etc. So let's click on one of our drivers here. And what you'll see is we get a view from the Samsara camera, so you can kind of identify what road conditions look like. We see that Sharon is currently driving at 63 miles per hour and has about 56% of gas. So if I wanted to get a closer look at Sharon, I can click in here. And what this is going to show is her historic route for the day. So we see that she started up in Cameron, Missouri, and she is going through and doing different stops throughout Kansas City Metro. On the left-hand side, we'll get a view of where she's currently at, as well as any of the diagnostics. Any of the diagnostics for her vehicle. So we see that currently we've got temperature, the odometer reading, and if we were to have any issues around like maintenance, oil change, that type of thing, that would be reflected here so that we could schedule this car for maintenance. The other piece here is that we can get a helicopter view, so you can get a very live view of her GPS location and tie that back into the expectations around delivery. What I want to show next is some of the compliance pieces I mentioned earlier. So by clicking into Sharon, we'll again get kind of that helicopter view on a Google Map overlay. But here is what I want to point out. So HOS, hours of service, electronic logging, all of these compliance pieces are top of mind for many fleet managers. And so you'll be able to go through here, and this is showing an individual log for a specific driver, but you can get all of the information around what her duty is, time until break, drive remaining, etc. That will kind of go through and inform how you're reporting these different compliance pieces and making sure that you are squared away. So I'm going to go back, and the next thing I want to do is play her trip. So this shows where she's starting, how she's kind of navigated, but the interesting thing I want to show you guys is that she has had a harsh event on this drive. So through the Samsara dashboard, we've recognized that there has been some type of issue as she's gone through. I click into the harsh braking event, and you can see that because of the telematics device, we were able to identify that there was a harsh break, and we can go through and start to remedy this, right? So what we would do here is click to the side and go into our safety inbox. And this is what I mean by cutting through some of the noise, right? So obviously, we are not going to be able to monitor all 500 of these vehicles at one time. So what we're trying to empower our users with is the ability to identify specific issues and then go through and say, okay, great, there's been coaching around this. I've been able to say, don't do that. You need to be better about this, etc. So here's a harsh turn. We can review the event, and that's kind of dictated by the red portion of this graph down here. Cut that one a little close, a little fast. And then as we go back, we can say this either needs review, needs coaching, or it's been coached. And all of this is aggregated into an overall safety score that is working across our entire driver footprint. So when Dorn said that they sort of worked to gamify this, basically they were putting it on a per depot basis. And you'll see that like these different depots have different scores and different numbers of users. So let's try to find one. They're all pretty high. Shoot, I think a 97 is the lowest. But you can see how this score has kind of fluctuated and the way that the different risk factors have informed that, right? So there was a crash. You kind of expect it to be less than 97 with 3 crashes. Harsh driving events, 6 total, speeding, etc. So all of that kind of works together to inform, hey, we have room to improve here. Why don't you go through and have a discussion? The next piece, which is in line with the other customer that we discussed, was this idea around workflows and forms. So what I'll show you guys is that from our settings page, I can go down and set up sort of a driver experience. So I'm going into the driver app, and I am going to go into the workflow section. And basically, we can look at a start of day workflow that we can require for each of our drivers as they go through and start their day. So here you can see, great, I'm getting ready to take on my first load of the day. I'm going to sign on, go on duty, and we basically have a sort of checklist for them to work through. And this is huge for people who are working to really prioritize the driver experience and making sure that there is as much kind of like active coaching or predictability to the day as possible for these drivers. Another example of this is going to be our proof of delivery. So you can click in, this is a different customer, but you can see that they use different driver document uploads that are required and included in a similar workflow to prove different parts of the day. And so let's say proof of delivery from Jeffrey Miller. He'll go through, you can see where this form was uploaded from. You can see, because this is a customer, they don't allow us to view the photos, which is why this is blurred out. But you can see proof of delivery, and then they can even include notes. So Kayla, I'm empty, gonna head to my next pickup. I hope everybody has a great day. But it allows people to really keep everything moving forward, make sure that we are proving delivery for end customers and speeding up the overall invoicing process. So that's enough for the demo today. But of course, if you guys want a more deep dive, I would encourage you to work with Eric, and we can get something scheduled. And then I am going to pass it to Eric to close us out, just to kind of talk through everything that Tivitri can do to deliver a fully end-to-end solution leveraging Samsara.
Thanks, John. One of the examples of a solution that we provide, in addition to kind of symbiont with Samsara would be a mobility package, right? So a lot of companies don't have robust IT departments necessarily, and we really try to help provide that mobility solution. So think tablets, mounts, maybe a data plan if it's needed. If you have additional applications that you want to run on your tablet or on the driver's phone, we can provide data plans or an MDM to really control how that data is being used. Additional managed services, kitting, right? Maybe the last thing you want is a bunch of individual parts showing up, so we can kit for each truck, a tablet, a mount, everything that's needed in one bundle. So you just hand it to the install technician to install it per truck, those types of things. And then just an additional layer of support. We speak Samsarian very well. We've been working with them since the beginning here. So these are just some examples of how we help or an example of how we help with Samsara. And then in addition to that, right, we've gone out and partnered with a lot of the integrated companies on the next slide here that do integrate with Samsara. So Samsara being your telematics hub or your single pane of glass, there's also other pieces that you may need. Popular solutions include side backup cameras, especially on tankers hauling hazardous materials like most of you are. Well, all of you likely are. These side and backup cameras give you the full picture, and maybe the dash camera doesn't tell all that. And Samsara has a camera connector, can bring that all into that same dashboard. Tire pressure monitoring, pressures and temperatures of your tires. There's way station bypass, truck friendly navigation. There's just a lot of different solutions that we can bring to the table, and we're happy to help with any of these things if you guys have any projects.
Thanks, Eric and John. One question for you. So most of us are dealing with heavy-duty trucks, fuel trucks, box trucks, etc. What if I had a light-duty vehicle fleet, like a fleet of F-150s? Are people adopting it with those kind of fleets as well?
Yeah, we haven't found a vehicle yet that we can't plug into. We've got different. It's just a matter of getting the right cable that plugs into the diagnostic of those vehicles or the right power source.
Yeah, and Jed, they're not going to be subject to the same compliance pieces that are set forth for some of the heavy-duty vehicles, but certainly in any commercial capacity, the dash cams and asset tracking or vehicle tracking, we've seen some very practical applications of that in helping kind of move forward with different incident resolutions.
All right. Well, terrific, guys. Thank you so much for taking time to share. And for the audience, we'll send out the contact information for Eric and John. So if you got any other questions, feel free to follow up directly with them. I know they'd be happy to speak with you more. So appreciate that. I'm going to flip the time now over to Johnny Howard, who's with Direct Fuel Sales. And Johnny, we want to turn to you to talk just a little bit about the state of the industry that's going on within diesel market, and especially as it relates to the payment industry of diesel with fleets, and how are people using those digital payment things, and what opportunities do we have? It's very similar to the fleet, where we're able to use technology in new ways to improve our company, and I know there are technologies that are taking place in diesel markets that lead to improvements too. So I look forward to you speaking to that.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jed. I really appreciate it. Can you guys hear me okay and see my screen good?
Yeah, you sound good, Johnny.
Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks again, Jed, for setting this up. We're really happy to be able to present here. So yeah, just kind of getting into the introduction of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the legacy methods for truck diesel payments in the industry, and then get into how digital payments and specifically direct fuel sales is disrupting the industry and can help truck stops grow their business. And in addition to that, we'll touch on some of the efficiencies DFS provides for truckers, truck stops, and our partners as well. So up until this point,
You there, Johnny?
basically the only
Johnny. Oh, there we go, Johnny. You cut out, at least for me. I don't know about the audience for a second, but I think I hear you back now.
Out there exclusively use fleet cards to buy fuel. And what's happened is over time, all of the players, which would be what you kind of see on the left, all of these fuel cards have eventually consolidated into two major players, being FleetCor and WEX. That being said, this has kind of created a duopoly in the fuel payments industry. And this has really been locked in because FleetCor developed the industry-leading point-of-sale system for diesel and has locked potential fuel card competitors out because FleetCor owns Comdata, which is one of the primary fleet cards. So effectively, this created a moat around their market share. And the duopoly has conceived high merchant processing fees, a lack of customer service in most cases, because they're focused on serving mega truck stops and mega fleets. That being said, that's been a good opportunity for some disruption in the industry, and that's really where direct fuel sales comes in. So kind of getting into, oh, go ahead.
A little bit, so I think ask for the audience. I think your main point was Fleet and WEX have really consolidated the market into the two people that are in the payment system right now in this duopoly structure.
Yeah, just to kind of revisit that. Yeah, essentially what's happened since they do have basically the duopoly, there hasn't been much incentive for them to try and let other players in. And also on top of that, they do offer a lot of services to fleets, especially larger fleets. And that includes like controls on what they can pay for, specifically diesel, and then certain things inside of a truck stop, but not necessarily like your Cokes and smokes and things like that. So it gives them a lot more control over what the driver can pay for.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, of course. And moving on from that, so DFS, the advantage of digital payments. So before we get into all the advantages of what digital payments and name like DFS has to offer, I wanted to get into a brief description of the transaction process through DFS. So what we do is DFS supplies our merchants with a kiosk or a tablet, and that integrates with our API. The API has location and price information for our partner applications to go and grab. So what happens is the partner app that we work with, TruckSmarter would be a good example. The partner app that we integrate with TruckSmarter will display that data on a map for their drivers. So when a driver is looking for fuel, they can simply select a price at a truck stop and hit reserve. And they're given an alphanumeric code, for example, like ABC123. This code or coupon correlates with the price that they actually reserved. When the driver arrives at the truck stop, they'll hit something like I'm here on their app. And in some cases, the apps are actually geo-fenced. So when the driver shows up at the truck stop, they'll get like a push notification or something like that that'll say, are you here? And then they can just confirm that. So when that happens, they can go into the truck stop, and when they hit I'm here, that same code ABC123 will show up on the truck stop's tablet or kiosk. When this happens, the cashier at the truck stop and the driver can just match the code, and then the pump is activated by the cashier. And after the transaction is done, the cashier will go and then just enter the number of gallons used on the tablet. This process is streamlined across all of the driver applications we integrate with. So for example, on a given day, a cashier could run 10 to 20 to 30 transactions across 6 or 7 different partner applications that we integrate with, and they all work exactly the same. The various partner applications then pay DFS, and DFS delivers the funds to the truck stop. So a big goal for DFS is to deliver transactions in a very clear and simple way. And doing this through digitizing everything has really made that possible. So we're really looking to add value and ease for cashiers, drivers, and the back-end accounting through the entire process. So with that being said, The kiosks that we have are very straightforward, very simple. And the whole idea is just to give cashiers that ability to be doing a bunch of things, multitasking, and then still be able to run these transactions. So it's an easy to use interface, and the transactions are streamlined, like I mentioned, across all of our networks. Then kind of moving into our advertising network. So as I mentioned, this is kind of that gets into the meat a little bit more of what's going on in the industry. So there are currently 3 partner apps that we're integrated with: Truck Smarter, Trucker Path, and Relay. And the apps do different things for drivers. They provide different services, but we're actually also teed up to go live with 3 more in the end of the quarter. And with that, we actually have conversations with about another dozen. So big movement inside of the different driver apps is to try and become more and more horizontally integrated and offer drivers more and more services. And fuel is a big part of that, because obviously that's one of the biggest overhead items for a driver today. And with the increasing diesel prices, that's a huge thing that drivers are trying to focus on. So with that being said, our network reaches more than 40% of the US driver market today, not including the additional applications that want to get set up. So the disruption has been really large. It's made a huge impact on even what the legacy fuel card or fuel cards is seeing. And then it's also making a big difference on what drivers are able to do. And it's giving them a lot more control and ability. And we'll get into that a little bit more shortly. On the truck stop side, we have really good reporting tools. So what we're doing is we're looking to provide perfect clarity and accounting throughout the entire process. And since everything is so digitized, we can do everything real time. There's no card swipes. There's not very minimal API endpoints that have to be transferred. So all of this data is actually accessible by the truck stop in real time at all times. So this portal that we've created on the back end, it works whether a site has 1 or 2 or 10 sites. They can see the retail price from their dashboard and the transactions across their locations every day. We also have really good settlements and transactional data. And again, it's just to provide as much clarity as we can and provide truck stops with the prices that they sold to each truck stop or each trucker as they go. We even have some really good real-time reporting. So what they can do is they can even access the kiosk and see what the cashiers are saying at that time. So that's helpful for them to be able to either help a new cashier with something that's going on remotely, and also just see maybe what's going on if there's a transaction that's sitting in the queue for quite some time. Lastly, it creates controls for the cashiers to be able to toggle whether they can update the retail price. So what that means is they can update all the retail prices remotely from this dashboard across all of their locations. And they can actually toggle whether or not the cashiers are able to do that themselves. So for a 1 or 2 site operator, they might maybe fine with their cashiers doing that. But if you've got 10, 20, 30 sites, a lot of the time it's nice for you to be able to change all the retail prices from one portal and kind of lock that down just so you guys can do it on your back end reporting.
So Johnny, a question for you. So I'm a diesel fuel retailer. I get a DFS tablet, and then the truck fleet truck comes in, and I get the code and I punch it in. It activates everything. How did the truck, the fleets get connected with you with DFS?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and actually that segues really well into the next slide here. Basically,
I'm here to serve, John.
Yeah, thank you. Basically, how it's worked in the past is kind of following the money life cycle of a typical payment would be the freight shipper will pay a carrier, and sometimes, and in many cases, that's all factored. So through a factoring company, the carrier will have to pay the factoring company about 5% of that invoice, or up to 5% at least. And when that happens, that usually takes a couple of days for that money to hit the carrier's account. And then the carrier will typically use their funded fuel card to go buy fuel at a truck stop, which costs the carrier another $2 per transaction. Meanwhile, when they swipe the fuel card at the truck stop has to pay anywhere from 8 to 15 cents in some cases per gallon of diesel that they sell to that trucker just in the card fees. So that's kind of where it's been in the past. However, now with a lot of these new apps coming into the appscape, there's been a lot more versatility, and it's created a lot more options and a much more efficient money life cycle. So TruckSmarter is a good example. TruckSmarter does factoring for different shippers or different carriers. So what will happen is the shipper will work with the carrier, and the TruckSmarter will factor that load for about 1.5%. And that'll go straight into their, what they call a TruckSmarter bank account. And this is a feature that's pretty common across all the apps that we work with, where whether they do factoring or they'll do specifically banking for trucking or the trucking industry, they'll usually have some kind of a virtual wallet that's already incorporated into their application. So this is a very nice quick life cycle for the freight shipper to pay TruckSmarter or to pay the driver through TruckSmarter, and that money's in their application. So when the driver quickly after that wants to go fuel, their money's already in their TruckSmarter application, and they can go fuel at a DFS location inside of the TruckSmarter app, and it doesn't cost them any money. So in that sense, the shipper or the carrier is saving 3.5% just on the factoring, and then they're also not having to pay anything extra for the fuel. And then DFS will work with TruckSmarter, Relay, TruckPath, and then or other applications as well to process those payments straight to the truck stop, and we do it 2 separate. So overall, the truck stop's saving about anywhere from 6 to 13 cents per gallon by doing it this way, and then the carrier is saving a lot of money by doing 3.5% factoring, and then also not having to pay the transaction fee. So whether the apps are doing factoring or they have whatever process they use, there's just a lot less hands dipping into the pot. So there's a lot more money for the truck stop at the end of the day, and there's a lot more money for the carrier at the end of the day, which is really what the industry is all about. So kind of wrapping up a little bit here. So DFS, what we do is we partner with our different trucker applications. We plug into different truck stops, and it creates a really efficient network for payments to essentially get all the way from the shipper to the truck stop and do it in a cheap way. So the driver walks away with more money in his pocket, and the truck stop walks away with more money in their pocket. In addition to that, the biggest part of what we're trying to open up here is the clarity of reporting throughout the whole process. We want to make sure that drivers are aware of what's going on, truck stops are aware of what's going on, and be able to help grow their businesses. And we do that through just stress-free reporting and merchant settlements. So with that being said, thank you guys so much. Thanks, Jed.
Yeah, absolutely. Johnny, on your last slide, you said over 1 million truckers, I think, are using some kind of network like what you're describing here. Do you have a sense for what that is of the size of the overall fleet network out there, market share wise, and where do you see this thing going?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of owner operators, and for reference, yeah, there is over 1 million daily drivers using just the apps that we have today, which is about 40% of the total driver network that's out there. So, and it seems to me from what we've seen, I mean, there's circumstances where drivers are having a really hard time, especially with their existing fuel cards or however they're doing payments, because it's just not that efficient depending on, the cash flow of what they've got to manage when they have to pay for their fuel card, and then also when they get their invoices paid from the shippers. So it seems like this network of what's going on here is just continuing to grow, and it's really kind of revitalizing the payment industry, not just with fuel, but that's kind of where a lot of this is revolved around. And like I mentioned as well, there's a lot more apps that are looking into getting into this industry, not because it's a great moneymaker, but more because it's another service to provide and be more competitive with the other apps that are in the space.
That makes sense. So just for my own clarification, you said 40% of the truckers out there are using a network or using your network, the DFS network?
I think my internet cut out. Could you say that again?
Oh, the 40% number that you referenced of truckers out there, are they using a network, a payment network, or are they using the DFS payment network?
The 40% are typically, they have access to the payment network, I should say. So this is reaching out to that large of a marketing platform where there's over 1 million daily drivers using these different apps for, Trucker Path, for example. They do a lot of price finding, and they're the biggest driver app that is out there. And they have something like 700,000 plus daily users using that app alone. And then with the other apps that we use, there's a huge driver network that each of them bring to the table. So cumulatively, that's how many drivers are just on those apps daily. So the marketing for the truck stop is getting in front of those guys on a daily basis.
I got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then one person in the audience asked, is DFS partnered with roadies?
DFS comes from a background of a lot of members here were at roadies. DFS is its own separate program. So that's one of the big selling points of DFS is honestly, we're a company that comes out of the truck stop industry. We really get this, but we are separated from roadies at this point. So we come out of the truck stop industry and we're getting into this digital payments industry. So that's one of the reasons why we are prioritizing the way we are. And we want to make sure that this is, a good long-term solution that kind of breaks the cycle of what we've seen before, where somebody new will get in the market. It'll be great for the first bit, and then the fees just rise to astronomical levels. And then it creates more opportunity for other people to get in the market. So we're trying to make a good long-term solution and kind of be the process that we've always wanted to see in the industry. So
that makes sense. And roadies is probably a customer of DSF, I would assume, or uses that network.
Yeah, there's a lot of roadies truck stops that accept DFS. That's correct.
Got it. And then if I'm a diesel merchant, a retailer, how are the retails set?
They're set directly at the kiosk, or they can also be set in the back-end merchant console. So it, like I kind of mentioned a little bit, the owner of the stop or the manager of the stop, they can decide whether or not they want their cashiers to update their retail prices in real time. If they do, then a lot of times the retailer or the cashiers will kind of update that. But you also have the ability to update retail prices on the merchant console backend.
Okay. Yeah, it certainly seems like this is a growing area. I don't know what the percentages were 10 years ago, but anymore it feels like the diesel transactions aren't done at the posted price that's out there on the street anymore. Somebody's buying off of a network.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And actually, I saw this the other day. It was the TA 2021 business review, and they had mentioned that 90% of their diesel volume is discounted on one platform or another. So they're only selling 10% of their volume at a full retail price.
Yeah, that's pretty sizable. Well, I really appreciate Donna, you stepping through all this for us and explaining a little bit about where this behind the scenes payment industry is going with these truck fleets. And we'll send out your contact information to folks too. And I know you'd welcome any questions that they have to be able to talk more about this. So again, thank you for your time, and for the audience, we'll send the recording, contact, and the PowerPoint slides out to everybody. But hope you have a really good day and enjoy spring as it's, I guess, it's officially here now. So take care. Goodbye.
Thank you.